and share this recording tonight with people who registered and were not able to attend. I'm not sure if it's the same for you, but May happens to be a little crazy in school settings. It feels like all the things are happening, all the celebrations, all the sports have ramped up. Everything that could happen in May is going on tonight. All right, well, while we're still getting people to join, I'm going to ask you if you are willing to go ahead and type in the chat, maybe where you're joining us from, so your city, state, and then if you're comfortable, a little bit about what you're currently doing, what's your role. So maybe you're a classroom teacher, maybe you're a coach, maybe you are a parent or an advocate, a tutor, so a little bit about you. It would help us to get an idea of who is here. And oh, good, I love this. I'm already seeing some city names pop up. So I will go ahead too and let you know a little bit about myself and Allison. So I'm joining you from Zionsville, Indiana, which is just north of Indianapolis. And I am joining you from my home that Allison reminded me should be packed up. We're in the process of getting ready to move, and nothing behind me is packed up. And I'm just going to pretend that, you know, that will happen on its own. So that's what's happening here. And Allison, you want to say hello and tell everyone where you're joining from?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining tonight. Sorry about the confusion. So I am actually in Verona, Kentucky, so about an hour outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. I do get to go to campus a little bit more than Jamie does, but I primarily work from home, and we do mostly everything over Zoom or phone calls, things like that. So I'm glad that everybody's here.
And the passcode issue is my issue. I must have done something that I don't typically do when I create a Zoom link. So the first person who reached out, thank you, because that triggered the emails that, oh, everybody's going to need this new passcode. So we'll go ahead and get started. And again, if you're just joining, please feel free to type in the chat where you're joining from, a little bit about your role. And tonight we are just doing a very informal information session. And the purpose of the information session really is to just go ahead and provide some information that is probably related to things that you've wanted to know about the program. Some of what we'll share with you tonight is available on the website, but we're going to go a little deeper around what to expect, kind of the design of this program, what it looks like if you are a student in the program, and the different plan options. And then also really just open the floor for you to answer or pose questions for us to answer, or for us to, you know, find answers out for you. So again, very informal. Please continue to use the chat, and Allison and I will do our best to monitor that. If there is a question maybe that you've posed and it really is relevant to what we're talking about, and you feel like maybe we should address it, please do not hesitate to unmute. Sometimes that's a little easier to pose a question rather than typing up the detail. So we will go ahead and get started. So my name is Jamie Peebler, and I shared with some of you that I am in Zionsville, Indiana. So I'm about 2 hours away from campus. Many of our faculty members are in the general Cincinnati area. We do have faculty members all across the country because our program is online, and that gives us the flexibility of both tapping into expertise in different states, but also to offer the program to people across the country as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then also let you know that we will post a copy of this slide deck so that you have access to some of the information that we're sharing in case you want to go back and revisit any of the details that we've covered tonight. So our agenda this evening is really first to go over the mission of our program, a little bit about the history of, you know, how we got here, some important accreditation information, especially if you are interested in contacting your state Department of Education to see if any of our programs have reciprocity and can be added to your teaching license. Then we will look at the specific structure of the program. So you have more than one option. Some of you may already have an idea of what brought you here tonight, and you want to hear about that. Some of you may be really looking at, well, what program might be the best fit for your goals personally and professionally. So we'll go over that a little bit. And then I'll go over a very brief piece around the application process and then turn it over to Allison to add more. So Allison will be the person that you will work primarily with during that application process. And then we'll get to the cost factors and some decisions around, how you might approach funding if this is a program that you decide is a good fit for you. So this is our mission statement for the Mount St. Joseph Reading Science Program. So again, what we are really looking at accomplishing within our coursework and the support that you get from faculty is to prepare you as educational leaders in the science of reading. And we do believe very strongly that reading is a social justice issue, and that without access to quality literacy instruction and to be able to develop those skills, we're limiting individuals into the goals that he or she may have for themselves. So we believe that this is an important mission, and that through a research to practice model, we can support educators, parents, and advocates to be informed and effective in delivering literacy instruction for all students. So that's who we are, that's what we believe, and that's what our program is designed to do. We are an accredited program, so a little bit about the accreditations. We are accredited through higher learning commissions. And so that's important for making sure that your credentials after you complete the coursework result in licensure and are acknowledged and recognized. But then in addition to that, we're very proud of our International Dyslexia Association certifications. We went through the initial certification in 2012. We completed a recertification in 2019, and then this winter, we went through a second round, and we're just waiting on the report from IDA about that. We're confident that that will still be renewed, but that is our latest accreditation. And within that, I think it's really important to understand that in order to maintain your accreditation, whether it's through a higher learning commission or IDA, there are parameters that the program has to operate in. And so that means we don't necessarily have as much flexibility when it comes to accepting transfer credits from other universities or giving what we call PLA, which is prior learning assessment, for experience that you might have. So while you might come to the table with skills and experience, there are some limiting factors in terms of whether that can count in your program because of being accredited. So we wanted to be really transparent about that. So we are also excited and proud of our A+ from the National Council for Teacher Quality. So National Council for Teacher Quality periodically reviews course syllabi. They also look at the instructional materials that have been reviewed, and we have consistently received an A+ from that organization. This is a little bit about our team. So you're not going to see everyone pictured here, but we have both a doctoral program and a graduate program, and many of the faculty members teach in both programs. So I'm going to go through a list of who is on our team, and many of them are also having the same kind of May that you are, that they're with families and attending graduations and getting ready for big life events like weddings. And so we have many different people that you'll probably encounter throughout your program. And so I want to make sure that you, again, know who they are. One really important person in the program is Dr. Amy Murdoch, and she is the director of both the graduate and the doctoral program. And so her role is really to make sure that we are maintaining our accreditation, to make sure that we have highly trained and skilled faculty members teaching courses, that we make decisions about whether courses need to be updated or realigned to IDA knowledge and practice standards. So she really keeps her pulse on both programs. So you won't have her as an instructor in the graduate program, but you will see her because many of the recorded lectures are lectures that Amy wrote and developed. So you will get to know her in that way, even if not having her as an instructor in your courses. So this is the rest of our reading science faculty. And again, just kind of noting what program the different faculty members teach in. So Maria Aielli is in the graduate program, and she is mostly teaching a children's literature course, which we have updated and revamped to be MTSS, in Instructional Intensification Database Decision Making. We'll kind of talk about those titles in a moment. Renata Archie, and Renata is teaching in New York City Public Schools, but she's a contributing faculty member, so she teaches one of our MTSS courses, so you may end up having her in one of the classes that you take. And Janelle Bauman, she is also a contributing faculty member. She teaches in Ghana School Corporation, which is just outside of Columbus, Ohio. She teaches our written expression course, which is in the master's program. And then Beth Corbo. Beth Corbo is someone who you will also see a lot in recorded lectures throughout courses. And she is primarily in the doctoral program. She's phasing a little bit out of the graduate program, but we love her so much that we haven't made it really easy for her to phase out. So it is possible that you may see her as well in one of the comprehension courses or one of the writing courses. Tambra Eisenberg, also a contributing faculty member. And I should point out that the contributing faculty members also happen to be recent doctoral graduates of the Reading Science program. So they are people who have come to know these courses very closely. And so we often use them to teach one specific course. So we really look at them as being content area experts. And so Tambra is teaching one of the writing courses as well. And then Pam Kastner might be a name that you recognize. She is both in the graduate and the doctoral program. Jennifer Keeler is teaching our Advanced Phonics and Linguistics course. So if you are interested in the dyslexia certificate, you will probably work with her in that advanced course. She also teaches our Introduction to Phonics and Linguistics in the Reading Science certificate. And then Janice Kohler, also a contributing faculty member. And so she is right now thinking of also helping Dr. Keeler in the Phonics and Linguistics course. And then Jan Maltinsky is someone you will probably work very closely with. She is also our clinical director for the practicum, and that's our Orton Gillingham Structured Literacy Practicum. So Jan coordinates the supervisors. She also teaches the Orton Gillingham course and is really involved in making sure students are matched well with someone in that semester-long course. Megan Martin is an assistant professor. She teaches the Comprehension Fluency course in the master's program. And Jen Nagley works very closely with Jan Maltinsky as clinical faculty, also doing Orton Gillingham supervision. And then I am the reading science facilitator, so I work with Amy Murdoch really to make sure that the graduate program is functioning, that we're responsive to the students, and that we're really helping to get people through the program and adjusting their program plans as they decide that they might want to stick around with us a little bit longer. And then I am also teaching in both the doctoral and graduate programs. So Larissa is the Center for Reading Science Assistant Director. You may see her doing some of the supervision work. Kelly Powell-Smith, also both programs, and you will probably work with her in our 536 course, which is our database decision-making MTSS course. And those of you who continue on to the master's may end up working with Dana Russell-Freudenthal. She does the master's thesis course. So most everyone in the master's program gets to work with her. You also will interact with two of our support staff. Amanda Lord is working primarily with the graduate program. And so during the application process or admissions process, you may end up getting a lot of emails from Amanda about what to expect, orientation information, and course registration. And Maggie Boozum mostly does that role in the doctoral program, but periodically we may end up interacting with her around scholarship and funding. So then we do have within our program 4 different options within our reading science program. We have the Reading Science Certificate, which is the most common one, and we'll break down those courses. The Reading Science Certificate also meets the prerequisites for the doctoral program application. The Ohio Reading Endorsement is only available to Ohio residents, and it can be tacked on to an initial licensure, and that includes those same 5 reading core courses in the Reading Science Certificate and a couple of additional requirements. The Dyslexia Certificate, which we'll talk a little bit about the certifications that come with that, and then finally the master's degree in reading science. So again, 4 different options. Within our program, we do have 3 different admission times or windows. So 6 cohorts. We use a cohort model, and that's so that we can keep students really tightly grouped together to allow you to build relationships and just experience the program as a whole, as a group. And within that cohort model, we do welcome 2 cohorts in August. Each cohort is about 20 students, so a total of 40 students in August. And we are currently accepting applications for our August cohort as well as our January cohort. So some people prefer starting in August, some people prefer starting in January. We do also have a May cohort, but the May cohort window obviously is not open at this time, but applications are now available for both August and January. And again, within that cohort model, you may end up being matched with students who are on a similar program plan. Maybe you're doing the dyslexia certificate, and you may also end up with students who are going to continue on to the master's. So those cohorts start pretty large and then get down to a nice size group. The way our program is designed is this is a fully online program. It is asynchronous so that you can maintain your commitments with your work and your family and other organizations that you might volunteer in. Maybe you serve on boards or you're very involved in your kids' schools or other programs. So that structure is possible through our Blackboard platform. So Blackboard is our learning management system. And our lectures, readings, activities, assignments, discussion boards, even the practicum work that you do are all accessible and managed through that Blackboard platform. So what happens is we will open up a course. Most courses are typically 7 weeks long. We do have some exceptions that we'll address in a moment, but in a typical 7-week course, we give you the content, but we give it to you in small doses. So we do pace it for you. It's not that all of a sudden a course opens and you're kind of on your own to check off all the boxes. What we do is we open a week's worth of content at a time, and you have a very detailed outline of what is expected that week. So in a typical week, you might have a list of some required readings that might include a chapter or 2 in a textbook. It may include a few research articles. And then there are activities to check your understanding of that content. You may have some very informal guided notes that you might fill out. You may have an informal knowledge check that you do, but it really is a way for you to gauge your understanding of the material and for us to give you feedback and to support you. Then later in the week, you may have a discussion board, and a discussion board could be both formal, where we require citations and ask you to really synthesize the information and work on your academic writing skills, or it could be a more informal discussion board, which is really just dialoguing with your peers. So we do a combination of those, but it's really designed so that you have a chance to interact with one another. And through those discussion boards, students often say things like, it really felt like we were in class together. I felt connected to my peers. I felt like I got to really know them and know the content. So that's by design. And then at the end of each week, there's often some sort of, again, informal check for learning in the form of a quiz. And those due dates are paced out for you such that most things are due on a Thursday and then again on a Sunday. And how you address the balance of finishing those tasks is really flexible. So for instance, I did the master's program as well at Mount St. Joe, and I started back in 2014. And at that time, we had 3 children. We had I'm trying to think, 5-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 15-year-old. And so the way that program worked for me is I was also a classroom teacher at the time. I found it manageable because I would get up in the morning when everybody else was asleep, and I might do an hour of coursework before school. Maybe I would read, maybe I would do some guided notes, I might respond to a discussion board, and then that allowed me to meet my Thursday due date of whatever assignments were due at that time. And then I often would spend, Saturday or Sunday afternoon, whether it was in the car at a sports practice or on the bleachers, or at my parents' while the kids were running around, I would get a good chunk of work done then. And I didn't feel like it was not manageable, and I felt like the flexibility of being able to do things when it was convenient for my schedule was really doable. So that flexibility is there, but also there's the accountability of pacing it for you, because sometimes in a busy adult world, we put things off until they're due. So we kind of give you some due dates to help manage that a little bit better. And then the structure, looking at that second bullet of one course at a time, is pretty consistent. So our courses are accelerated. That's that 7-week model I talked about. And you will often do a 7-week course and maybe in fall have a week off and then another 7-week course. In the spring, it's very similar, a 7-week course, a week off, and then another 7-week course. You do tend to have a longer time off in December and January, so usually it's about a 4-week break between courses. And then we do run all year long, so courses also go across the summer. We just typically don't have a week off between courses. They're usually back to back in the summer. One exception is our Orton Gillingham or practicum course. It is not a 7-week course. For accreditation purposes, it is 16 weeks. And so what that looks like is, a semester-long course. And for the Reading Science Certificate, all programs take that 16-week course. The Dyslexia Certificate actually does that twice. So there's a continuation. And just a note, which we'll address again in a moment, if you do the Dyslexia Certificate, those 2 practicums have to be back to back. So you can't take one, take a semester off, and then take the second practicum. They do have to be consecutive for accreditation purposes. And then the third course, which is also longer than 7 weeks, is only in the master's program, and it's the thesis, and that goes across 14 weeks to give you time to write. So I'm going to pause there and just see if we've got any questions about that structure before we get into the differences of courses across the plans. All right. And again,
I have a question actually. Did you say that it was the Reading Science Certificate that met the criteria or the 5 courses required for the doctoral program, the prerequisite?
Yes, it is. It's the Reading Science Certificate. And again, it does meet the needs of all 5 courses that are prereqs.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. So please do not hesitate to stop me if you have a question, but let's go ahead and take a look at the courses within each of the 4 options that we offer. So this is the Reading Science Certificate that we're looking at, and that is based on 5 core courses. These 5 core courses are actually embedded in all of the other 3 programs that we're going to look at. So this starts with RDG 505, which is our Psychology of Reading course. And what this class really focuses on is understanding the seminal works around reading science. So we look at things like Goff and Tunmer's Simple View of Reading, and we read the initial publication to really break that down. We look at the 4-part processor and how it really explains how print language develops through spoken oral language. And then we break down what are the primary causes of the reading wars and how did we get here. But a really important part of that course is how to be a critical consumer of research. And so what does it look like to be able to determine that an article has met the peer review process and that it does uphold standards for being considered valid and reliable. So we also, within that course, really focus on setting you up for success throughout the program by making sure that you understand APA. So we use APA as our system for documentation and citation. We really want to help you become a strong academic writer. So we spend quite a bit of time in that first course really empowering you to get feedback on your academic writing so that you can take that forward in your other coursework. After 505, you would take 540, which is fluency and comprehension. And so here we really look at the oral language component of vocabulary and syntactic awareness and knowledge building to allow students to be strong comprehenders and producers of language, and really looking at what that looks like in a structured literacy framework. After 540, we get into phonics and linguistics. And in that course, it's really focusing on providing you with the information you need to be prepared for your Orton-Gillingham practicum. So we look a lot at phonemic awareness and early phonics instruction and how to be very explicit and systematic in planning and delivering phonics. Then the database decision-making 1, which is our MTSS course. This is really looking at assessment systems. And so we walk students through screening processes, analyzing data, really looking more at tier 1 and tier 2 and problem solving so that we know what to do for students who are having difficulty reaching the expectations for outcomes. And that then ends in the last course, which is the semester-long 591 Orton-Gillingham practicum. So you really have 2 full semesters before that practicum to be thinking about what student you might want to use for your practicum. And so we offer that information early on to give you plenty of time to feel comfortable about making a selection. We recommend that you work with a student at about a 2nd or 3rd grade level. Going higher is great. Going much lower than 2nd grade can be a little challenging because it limits your opportunity to learn more advanced content. And then you'll also want to choose a student that you can work with twice a week for 60 minutes or 3 times a week for 45 minutes. And that criteria is part of our accreditation. So that's a parameter that we just really have to stay within. But again, having that information really early on in the program helps you prepare for that. And then once all 5 courses are finished, you're done, except sometime during your program, there are 3 additional requirements that we need you to fulfill. And when you do those is really up to you. We do have some recommendations, but one is passing the K-PERI exam, and that's the knowledge and practice exam related to IDA accreditation. And we recommend taking that during your last semester while you're doing 591, because we really feel strongly that our first 4 courses prepare you to take that exam. So we don't really recommend taking it early in the program. We really recommend taking it sometime in your final semester. However, earlier in the program, if you like, you do need to attend at least 6 hours of a professional conference. That can be an in-person conference. It can also be a live online conference, or it could be an accumulation of up to 6 hours worth of webinars. And we do recommend some specific ones if you're not quite sure. And then when in doubt, we ask you to contact your advisor and see about getting some of the conference requirements approved. There aren't really any that we say you can't do, but we just want to make sure if it is something that we're not feeling comfortable is aligned with reading science, that you're walking in that knowing that it isn't a reading science aligned and you can be an informed consumer. And then the last one is joining a professional organization. So we recommend either your state chapter of the International Dyslexia Association or your state or national chapter of the Reading League. Maybe you're an ALTA member already or an Orton-Gillingham Academy member. And then there are other options that, again, you could check with your advisor to see. So I do want to come back to that question that was posed in the chat about the practicum and address that while we're here. So often people do have an interest in working with a family member. And we do say it cannot be a child, so someone that lives with you, just because it's very challenging. Sometimes our own children or those kids that we are closest to don't always give us their best, but they'll give it to somebody else. So it's really a matter of kind of protecting your experience that we say, we don't allow people to work with their own children, but also accreditation purposes, we're not allowed to. If there is another family member that doesn't live with you, that maybe is not an immediate family member, you are always welcome to ask your advisor or Jan Maltinsky so that you can find out if that would be a good fit. And then as we get through some of these other programs, I'm going to try to address the question about timing and about how long it takes to complete, because there is some variation. This reading science certificate can be completed in a full calendar year. That's because it takes 3 semesters and we do go year round. So this is a year-long program to complete if you're doing the reading science certificate. The Ohio Reading Endorsement is also a year-long program plan. The only difference here is what you see bolded. So the Ohio Reading Endorsement does the same 5 core courses. It also has the same 3 requirements of the K. Perry Professional Conference and a membership. The only difference is there is one more course that needs to be taken, and that is 537. It's Database Decision Making 2. And what that course involves is problem solving at a tier 3 or individual student level. And so this is done at the same time as your Orton Gillingham practicum. So this is the one experience in the Ohio Reading Endorsement where you will take 2 classes at the same time. But they're designed to work in conjunction so that the practicum student you're using in 591 will be the same student that you'll do your problem solving with in 537. So that's a new course that we're offering for the first time this fall. I'm really excited about that, especially because it is something that many students have requested in terms of problem solving and intensification and doing that, kind of process of determining eligibility for special education. That's a topic we address in that course as well. So same full year program. And then as we get to the dyslexia certificate, this one is going to take longer because it does add 1 more semester of coursework. So this one takes 4 semesters to complete, so just over a year. It'll be a year and a semester. It also contains the 5 core reading science courses, and the 2 bolded ones are in addition to. So this has a second full semester Orton Gillingham practicum, 591B. And just a reminder that 591 and 591B have to be taken back to back. So that's important in planning, if this is an option that you want to consider. You also take 532, which is the advanced phonics and linguistics. So that gets into etymology and morphology. It's also important to note that with this certificate, you are eligible for IDA CIRI accreditation or certification at level 2. So that's, an advanced certification. Just as the reading science certificate and the Ohio Reading Endorsement, there are those 3 requirements of passing the K. Perry, your professional membership, and a conference. And then finally, we have the master's degree. And so the master's degree, again, same 5 core courses, but then the additional courses are bolded. This takes 6 semesters to complete, so that's 2 full calendar years. And then as we look at the additional coursework, we've already talked about 537, that database decision making that was in the Ohio Reading Endorsement. That is also part of the master's program. We've already talked about 532, that advanced phonics and linguistics. So what's different in the master's is you have a 7-week practicum. It's not a semester-long practicum, but the 7-week practicum around fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And so that one's a little different because you do not have to work with a student one-on-one twice a week. It's really designed for someone who is already in the classroom to be able to do their regular classroom instruction and fulfill that requirement. Or someone who is not a classroom teacher but might be tutoring can fulfill those hours in a different way. So it really doesn't have the same demand as the other practicums do, even though it has practicum in the title. And then 542, which is a comprehension and written expression course. And there we really look at supporting students to do a very structured approach to improving transcription and composition skills for writing. And then the next course is setting you up for your master's thesis. It's statistics and research. And don't let the title scare you, because if I pass the course, anybody can pass the course because math is not my strong suit. But it's also, again, building on this idea of being a critical consumer of research. It really looks at how do you find research articles? How do you do a search and make some good decisions about whether it's relevant to the topic that you're exploring? So again, it really sets you up for that. And then your final course in the master's program is a semester-long thesis project. And so your instructor really works with you to see what is a problem that you want to solve or a question that you want to examine. And then throughout the course of that semester, there is a very systematic way to build you to be comfortable and successful in writing your thesis. And so again, like the other programs, the 3 additional requirements of the KPERI, also of the conference attendance and the professional membership. So that is the overview of the course plans. And I will pause there and see if there are any questions that you might have about those different options. And yes, the dyslexia certificate could fall across 2 years. You would just have to be really intentional about when you took that break so that it did not interrupt 591 and 591B from being completed, back to back. And then the child time requirements for the practicum are pretty, I don't know, I want to say they're pretty tight in terms of not having a lot of wiggle room, but it is a 16-week course, and for 14 of those weeks, you'll need to have access to your student, and you'll need to have access to the student either twice a week for 60 minutes or 3 times a week for 45. And that's to meet the minute requirements for how many sessions and how much time. And then do students from the different programs attend the same courses? Yes, so when you are in your cohort model, you will stay with those cohort members all the way through the program unless you're in the master's degree. Because once you're in the master's degree and the reading science certificate students have finished their coursework, and the dyslexia and Ohio reading endorsement students have finished their coursework, the master students often come together for the last couple of semesters. So that's when you will rejoin and get to kind of make your group a little bit larger. But because you've been on the same journey together, it's really neat to kind of see those groups come together. One important question about really that practicum, or I'm sorry, the program itself being recognized by other states. Each state really is responsible for updating their guidelines, and some states do that very often. Some students don't really make changes to the requirements, in a regular organizational calendar system. So what we ask for you to do is to reach out directly to your State Department of Education and provide them with the information that we've provided you to see if they will accept. So to see if the master's degree is recognized in your state and can be added. We do have students across the country in our program, but we, again, don't want you to be in a situation where we've had a student before and we said, yes, they were able to add, but the requirements at your state have changed. So we do, really put that on you to make sure that you're getting current information from your state around recognition reciprocity. Let's see, I don't know the answer to the question about being the only university in Cincinnati with IDA certification because everyone has to renew. So I'm a little afraid to answer that question. So I'm sorry that I don't know, but you could find a current list on the IDA website. They're pretty good about keeping that list current to see. Okay, let's see, Allison, am I missing any questions?
Yes, so there was one about if they plan on doing the doctorate, do we recommend the certificate or the master's?
Okay, that's good. Well, a prerequisite for the doctoral program is a master's, and then also those 5 courses. So if you don't already have a master's, then yes, getting a master's degree here and getting those 5 courses out of the way would be ideal. If you do already have a master's degree and you're really just wanting those 5 prerequisites, then the reading science certificate may be the better option. Okay. Well, I have a couple more things I want to share with you, and then we will, kind of open it up for broader questions too, or anything that I have not yet addressed. We're going to talk a little bit about cost and again, the overall structure of the practicum, which I think is something that most people are are really trying to understand if that's going to work for them and their schedule. So the practicum does require us to have an opportunity to observe you working with a student. It's a supervised practicum. And because we have students all over the place and in all time zones, the way that we do that is through an online video platform called Athena. So that means you would need to be able to record yourself working with a student. We then, in this platform, provide you access to upload your video. Your practicum supervisor is able to give you some annotated feedback that is time-stamped in your video so that you can go right to the moment in time that that comment was made and see, what your instructor said you did a great job on and continue doing, or what you might want to try with a student who's having difficulty. So that's a really effective piece of our program. That also, though, means there is an additional practicum fee in that course to cover the Athena platform and the supervision. So again, we'll break that down just a little bit. And then after you finish your reading science certificate, you are eligible, and we do recommend people go to the Center for Effective Reading Instruction and go through the process of getting level 1 certification. Again, dyslexia certificate people are eligible for getting level 2 certification, but all students in our program are able to do level 1. The Center for Effective Reading Instruction is also where you will go to register for the KPERI exam. So that's something everyone should be aware of. The cost for our program right now, graduate tuition is $700 per credit hour. And Allison, I think that is correct. Is that right? Okay. And then all of our courses are 3 credits. Even the Orton Gillingham practicum that is a semester long, it is still 3 credits. So in a typical semester, you're going to have 6 credits. And so when you think about, kind of budgeting that out. In addition to credits, there are fees. Even though you're not an on-campus student, there are fees that really are enabling you to have access to our online platform like MyMount, which is grades and transcripts and all of those processes, access to the library, and Blackboard. And so because most semesters are 6 credits, that graduate fee is either $310 per year, which would cover all 3 semesters in a year, or $155 a semester if you were only going a partial year. Books are also a cost to figure in. So many of our books are available online, but you may be someone who would like a physical book. So there is a cost associated with that. And as I mentioned, practicums for that Orton Gillingham, not for all semester-long courses, but practicums do have an additional fee, both for the supervisor and for the online platform. So around the idea of planning and budgeting, there are scholarships available for the graduate program. They are partial scholarships. And it's important to note that this partial scholarship does have some application requirements. One important requirement is that you have to submit your FAFSA because it is both a merit-based and a financial scholarship. And so by submitting the FAFSA, we're able to see if there is a needs-based component because that's part of the requirement. And then the application is really where you want to show that you would be a good recipient of the scholarship because you would be someone that would be a good investment because you are able to take this knowledge and you're going to make change in your community. So when you apply for that scholarship, consider that as part of the process too. And so more information on that is available as you take the steps towards application. So to talk about the application windows, and I'm going to hand it over to Allison just a little bit because there's a little bit of wiggle room in these application windows and the process. So Allison, do you want me to stop screen sharing or do you want me to keep the screen share on while you talk to the group?
You can keep it on. Yeah, that's fine. I'm just going to put, just in case you haven't started an application, I'm going to put the link in the chat for quick access. But you would, to start your graduate application, you go to msj.edu/apply. From there, you'll complete pretty basic information. And then you have a checklist of items that are required for admission, to be reviewed for admission. Our application is not overcomplicated. And what's really nice about our system is that we have a checklist that keeps you on task. So You can start your application, you can take a break, you can grade papers, you can come back to it. It's going to be there and all of your saved work. So some of the basic things that we require: official transcripts. Those official transcripts need to be sent directly to the mouth. They cannot be emailed or uploaded by you, just because that's not considered official. There's a resume, a letter of intent. The letter of intent is used for us to review, first of all, see how you write, to see the reason why that you are interested in our program and some of the goals that you have that you would like to accomplish by attending our program. There are 2 letters or 2 references that we require, and it's pretty simple. You just provide their contact information, and we send a survey for them to complete. What's really nice about the survey is that it doesn't take a lot of time, but we do really appreciate when people really take the time to give us some insight into how they know you, their working relationship with you, and how, their view of you completing this program. And outside of that, it's very task driven, like I had said. And what's nice is that the application is open. Like Jamie had said, we've extended some of our dates to kind of give that flexibility for people to choose. So sometimes August is just a little bit more chaotic than maybe January. So we have both of those applications open for you to decide which works best for you. And I can put my email address in here. If you have any questions, I'm available here. Sorry, I just saw a question pop up. So typically we have our applications will be reviewed and decided for the August cohort. It'll be by June 1st. So we usually try to give ourselves a couple months before to get those cohorts settled and ready to start. So for the January cohort, we'll have decisions made by October 1st. And our August cohorts will be notified no later than June 1st. You're welcome. And if you have any questions, I'm just posting my email now. You can email me, call me. We can set up a Zoom call if there's anything that you have specific. I saw that there were some questions, Jamie, that you might be able to answer in the chat about, some of the practicum requirements, again, if they can be virtual or if they have to be in person. And then for our PLA, I don't know if you're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth or not for our prior learning assessment.
Yeah, that's it. That's a really important one. Let's talk a little bit about the practicum platform. So yes, you can tutor your student virtually. In fact, there are several people who are tutoring via Zoom, which makes it really easy to record right on the Zoom platform and submit your video. So that's definitely an option. I think it's interesting. We have a student right now who is on a military base overseas, and she is tutoring a student basically in MSJ's backyard in Cincinnati. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility there. And then related to practicum, I think I saw a question about the master's practicum, and I think that was answered. So I do want to confirm that yes, that master's degree practicum is just a short 7-week one. And then related to practicum, often people are interested in getting PLA, so that's prior learning assessment, specifically around the Orton Gillingham course. We find that more and more people who are interested in our program are actually coming to the program because they have had an Orton Gillingham experience and they want to continue on with reading science. So if your training is from an IDA accredited organization like the Orton Gillingham Academy or IMSC or MSLIC or any one of those, Wilson maybe, then what we do is we ask you to provide that documentation that you have successfully completed that training, and then Jan Maltinsky, the clinical director, looks at that. It is almost always a very direct match. Again, if it's an IDA accredited, that PLA is usually granted. There are some limitations as to how many courses we can give PLA for or even transfer credit. So PLA, if you are in the reading science certificate, we can only give PLA for one course. And so if there is an opportunity for you to get that PLA from an Orton Gillingham practicum, that's usually the one that we encourage you to do because that's a considerable amount of work. If you are in the dyslexia certificate, it is possible to get PLA for up to 2 courses. And in that instance, it is often that you have had an extensive Orton Gillingham practicum and it meets the criteria for 591 and 591B. What we can't do is accept PLA for 591 and then you take 591B with us because that doesn't allow those to be back to back and they both have to be from the same organization. So in that situation, we might advise you to go ahead and finish, if it's an option for you, finish your extended practicum in your current organization, and then we would grant PLA for both of those later. So then if you are in the master's program, we can grant up to 3 courses of PLA. And so commonly people will ask, I have had letters training, does that count for PLA? And unfortunately that doesn't, because in order for us to do PLA or even transfer credit, it has to be a direct syllabus match. So it has to have all the same content in our course and all the same content in either volume 1 or volume 2. And that is something we've looked at many times, even as we've revised courses, and it just doesn't make a match for our accreditors to approve. So letters training is not something that we can give PLA for. PLA, yes, PLA, prior learning assessment. You would think it feels like it should be a better acronym. It almost should be like experience. But basically that's what it is. It's really experiential learning that you have, evidence that it has met the standards of the course. Okay, well, so then one last thing that I have for you is really the contact information, both for the Reading Science email and also for Allison specifically. Allison put hers in and her phone number. And again, Allison is so responsive. I get lots of students who have very complex questions. Some of them are more complex on the application end in terms of transcripts and what's needed. And Allison is great at answering those. And then we work collaboratively just to make sure that between the two of us, we can find anything that a student needs as best we can. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And then the other thing, which I think you did also put in the chat the link to the application. Is that correct, Allison? Okay.
Yes, I did. Yes.
Thanks. And then these are just some of the students that have been in our program. So I am going to stop sharing now and just open it up for any other questions that you might have. And again, please feel free to unmute if that's easier to ask any questions. I know before I forget right now, because this was somewhat brought up in the chat, when will August cohort applicants have a decision? And Allison mentioned June 1st. And it is very possible that, I know it's a tight window between now and June 1st to get an application in because it's end of school. And like we said before, everything is happening now in the next few weeks. So, if you can't quite make that June 1st deadline, reach out and let us know because we would be happy to work with you. I'm really trying to review applications that are in my queue right now to have a very small number of last minute ones to review quickly.
I have one question, just for clarity. It sounds like if you pursue the dyslexia certification, does that include the reading science certificate, the Ohio reading endorsement, along with the dyslexia certificate, just because of the courses that you have to take?
Great question. It does include the reading science certificate. In fact, the reading science certificate, everybody gets no matter what. So everybody will get a reading science certificate. The dyslexia certificate, though, doesn't include the reading and Ohio reading endorsement. It could be added. What it means is you would take one more course.
Okay.
So are you an Ohio resident by chance?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So if you did the dyslexia certificate, we would add one more course for you, and that would actually enable you to get reading science certificate, Ohio reading endorsement, and dyslexia certificate.
Okay. Okay. Thank
And it
you.
is possible to do a combination. So we often have students who might start off with a dyslexia certificate and decide they want to add the master's, and that is very possible. But often it's the other way around. We have students who start off with a master's and go, you know, that practicum was helpful to me. I'm actually going to, if possible, add the dyslexia certificate because that adds one more course since they're already taking 532 as the master's. So we are happy to work with you. We customize plans in terms of adding things on, but I want to be clear that we don't actually get to customize plans in terms of picking and choosing which courses. Those are set by our accreditors. So if you do the Ohio Reading Endorsement, we can't substitute courses. If you do the master's, we can't substitute courses. They're set as I illustrated today, but you can always add things to your plan.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So again, we will stick around, happy to answer questions, but you will get a follow-up email with the PowerPoint slides, especially because of the live links in there in case you want to go check out the application or any additional information. And this recording will be posted on our Reading Science page on MSJ's website so that if you need to revisit anything, you are welcome to do that there. So it has been so exciting to see all of you here tonight, an incredibly busy time of year. So I know you've got a lot of other things to do. Thank you for joining. And again, we will stick around if you have any other questions that you would like to toss our way. So have a great night, and hopefully we'll get to see some of you in August or January.
Can I ask a question? For some reason, I can't find where to raise my hand. It's hiding from me somewhere. I have a question about you, as you were mentioning, and I apologize if I missed it earlier. You were just noting you can't take additional courses or pick courses, but if we're interested in doing something for our master's, for the master's degree that would relate to our thesis, like interested in multilingual education, for example, and there was a course outside of the science of reading set of courses. I don't know if there actually is, but is there a way to take those courses to sort of have additional knowledge for our thesis and related topics?
Right. It depends on the school that it's in. So, for example, we have had students go take courses in our speech and language sciences program. So, they went and took an intro to speech language pathology. So it really is a matter of coordinating with some of the other schools to see if they have room, if that's possible for the student, because often courses have another set of prerequisites. And so, it may be that, yes, you could take the course, but you would actually have to take a prerequisite before you did. But that's something that we would be happy to talk with you about and explore. Allison's also really good about being familiar with other schools and their admissions process so that we can see if that's an option.
There was one more question in the chat. So we usually cap our cohorts at 40 each semester. So that's two groups of 20 per semester in our cohort.
Sorry,
Nice.
I have allergies,
Go ahead.
so I'm losing my voice. I didn't want to ask a question with everyone here because it's very specific to me. So I don't know if anybody else has any questions before. Otherwise, I can go with mine. Okay. I'm a owner of a publishing company, and we make decodable books. I'm not a teacher. I have my teaching degree that I got after I started my company because I felt like an imposter. And I just wanted to know if I was a candidate that would be considered, despite the fact that, I do tutoring because I want to make sure that what I sell makes sense. And I work closely with many teachers and, I have teachers on my team, but I myself don't have like an extensive teaching background other than the practicum I did in my teaching degree. Is that like, should I bother applying if I want?
You would be a great candidate. We have people who are parents who want the knowledge for their children. We actually have someone who I just spoke to recently who is in a religious program. I think he may be a pastor and is interested in having this knowledge. We also have advocates. So we've had nurses. It's not a program just for educators who are currently practicing. So yes, we would welcome your application.
Okay, great. Thank you. I also wanted to let you know that I offer free books to students in accredited programs. So if ever you were interested in supplying free decodables to your student side, let me know. I'm happy to hand them out.
Oh, that's exciting. Great. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Well, if anyone has questions, feel free to ask them. And if something comes up after we close out our session tonight, you are welcome to email me. You are welcome to email Allison, and we will do our best to track down an answer for you. So it was nice seeing you all. Have a wonderful evening. And it's still light here. I hope maybe it is where you are and you can enjoy some nice weather. So have a great night.